7:02 p.m. on Tuesday, January 7th, 2020. This is the advisory committee, and the single item on our agenda is to do an initial run-through of the proposed FY21 operating budgets and capital requests. First of all, I want to apologize if I end up narrating some things, because I just want to make sure if anybody's watching, they know some of the numbers if they don't have the handout. So to just quickly get us started off, I wanted to make a couple high-level points. This is on the front of our sheet. So we have a budget that includes a bunch of assumptions about both revenue and operating expenditures. We've received requests from virtually all of the departments and committees in town, but there are some fairly big budget drivers where the numbers won't become final until later in the process. So for example, our health insurance number is just an assumption. Our school assessments are assumptions. Our Worcester Regional Retirement assessment is also just an assumption. So those numbers are subject to change. But based on the assumptions we're making as of today, we're going to have total revenue of $26.6 million. Total operating and capital expenditures of $27.1 million, which leaves us with currently a projected deficit of $457,292. So that roughly $500,000 is the budget deficit that we're going to try to resolve before we get to town meeting. But I just want to make sure that everybody kind of knows that that's the lay of the land going into tonight. So that being said, I thought, unless anyone has any initial questions, my plan was to just kind of start on page 1 of the general government budget and just talk through what we're seeing in each department and identify any questions that we might have for folks when they actually come in to meet with us. And then I've also brought, in case anyone wants to see it, I think we all have binders, but the sort of supplemental detail level sheets, in case we want to look at that. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I always have a beef with free cash. It's almost as though what is there, 450,000 is our target?
350.
Is it 350?
These are the target.
Well,
Or at least that's what's listed here.
yeah, no, so our target, the 350 target is the target of what we want to end the fiscal year with.
Right.
Yeah, but we don't want that much to start the year because doesn't that mean we've done something not so great? I mean, there's all that money that's come back.
Why don't we
Couldn't
go
it
over
have
these
been-
numbers so we're clear what
It was
they are?
somewhere. We had
You're
to-
looking at this, right?
Yes,
The 800,
yes.
Oh, did you say we should say what they are?
yeah, we should just need to go through here because she's
That's a
looking
good
at the
idea.
841 and having a nervous going into an L.
It's every year. Every year. it
So I
seems
think we
too
need
much.
to,
So, no, I think it's a good point to at least orient everyone. So the numbers we're looking at, the free cash amount, which was certified in October of 2019, September of 2019, is $841,000. Now, our financial policies set a target. This is from memory, but I think our target is that we would like our certified free cash amount to be between 4 and 5% of what we expect our operating budget to be. The idea being, this is essentially the buffer that we have in terms of free cash to manage capital requests, snow and ice, any unexpected expenditures. And that target of 4 to 5% in our financial policies was something that, we kind of all discussed as a group. And it's also, I think, one of the reasons why the bond rating agencies think that we're managing things relatively conservatively. We don't want that number to be too high, for sure, but we also don't want it to be too low so that we have literally no free cash to pay for capital the next year. So our target, when we end the fiscal year, our target is to end with basically $350,000 left over. So 2 years ago, we hit that target. We were slightly higher, but just by $10,000 or so dollars. Last year, we didn't hit that target. We were around 200,000. We ended last year with $200,000 in free cash. And so we sort of knew that we would head into this year with certified free cash slightly below where we would like it. But it's a philosophical question at some.
I always think it's too high though. 4 to 5% it's just high with tax. It's all rolled back in, right? From somewhere? How did we acquire another $400,000?
Do you probably know the mechanics of how it gets certified?
So free cash is everything that the departments turn back, anything we don't spend, any excess receipts. Those are the big drivers, less any fund balance deficits.
So that's what I don't like about it, is because we have to tax according to the budget. And there's all this money that rolls back that we actually raise by giving more to departments that,
Well, some
Not
stuff
needed
is,
much.
Health insurance. Some years are good, some, you don't know. I think it's good to have turnbacks. Yeah, I agree. You
Yes.
don't want to have or maybe a department head leaves and there's we've had that issue that there's a few months that there's a position not filled. So of course money's going to go
So how
back.
this rolls up depends on what came through and what did not, what got turned back, not spent,
Right,
versus what wasn't needed.
right.
So this is going to be artificially high at the beginning every year because it's the sum and substance of everything that's been.
Well, your goal is to predict what's going to happen for, something 18 months from now, and who can say?
Well, I think you're overlooking that if your free cash target was, or the free cash target that you actually went with last year was 200,000, that's rolled into the 841.
Right.
Okay? So if you have a target of 350, and next year you have a target of 350, and the year after that you have a target of 350, you're never actually using that 350 for capital projects. You're just keeping it as some kind of buffer. And then it rolls into the following year's free cash.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think we've tried to avoid relying on free cash to supplement the operating budget, but this looks like it'll be the second year in a row when we probably need to.
Right. Well, I understand the goal of avoiding it, and I hope we achieve it, but I understand if we can't.
Yeah.
My point was just, free cash targets do not evaporate. They become the free cash total that's certified the following year.
Right.
right, so 350 minus 841, that's what we are over. Our free cash target, correct? What you're saying? Is that what you're saying? 350 minus 841, the balance would be what we are over our free cash.
Well,
Excess
Excess,
revenues
yeah.
are under expenditures.
Right,
I'm working my way through the syntax there, and I'm having a problem.
if the 350 is always rolled into free cash year after year,
Right,
and it's within that 841,
right.
right? You subtract the 350 from the 841, and the remainder is what
Is
You're
what we got
actually
from turnbacks
over
and excess
from- of
and
free cash.
anticipated revenue,
Right.
yes.
And actually, last year, the actual turnbacks, I think, were only like 65,000. I mean, we were pretty close. Like, at one point, I was like,
I like
oh.
that. I like
I mean,
being
it's good.
closer to free
Well-
cash. I thought that was the whole idea.
No, I mean, it's good that we were positive, but it was
close.
That to me is too close for
Too
comfort.
close.
We were lucky that we
Too
had
far.
excess receipts. We were lucky that building permits were good, or, what if they weren't? And then you
Oh,
have a
60
negative
so-
free cash position. I don't ever wanna be in that
I
position.
think you just made it a point which I was not being very clear about. So this 841 number, it's not just the product of turnbacks. It's also like, when we estimate our revenue, we are limited in how much we can increase our estimates of certain things. So for example, like, even though we knew we had implemented a meals tax and increased the room occupancy tax, and we had a sense of how much that would increase our revenue, we literally could not increase our projection in our budget beyond a certain number, I think it's 20%. And so our estimate of revenue is statutorily limited, and so if the revenue
Which I think
actually
is a
ends up
good thing.
being higher,
Then we,
that's gonna go into free cash too.
okay.
And so, okay,
And in addition to that, there are many circumstances where departments like the library and the fire department, the police department, apply for grants, but the grants are reimbursement grants. The department has to spend the money out of the
To
budget,
get the grant.
and then in order to apply for the grant, and when the grant finally comes through, it goes into free cash. So there's tens of thousands of
Different
dollars.
ways. that-
Right,
yeah.
there's tens of thousands of dollars that come into the free cash over the course of the year because of that.
yeah. But I mean, I think the broader point you're making is one I think we all need to kind of just be continually reminding ourselves that it's easy to assume that this means that we're overtaxing, but there's a few different variables, like, that go into free cash, yeah.
So the grant money
Yeah.
isn't something that the taxpayers pay for, it's reimbursing.
Right.
So Brian, I think you mentioned 4 or 5%, and 4 or 5% is gonna be more than $1 million on our budget. What is that 4 or 5% you're referring to?
What is it?
Yes, where do I see it on this page?
So if we were, I mean, I can, it's in our financial policies,
Sure.
the target. So there's no, it doesn't correspond to a number on the page.
Okay, because I don't see any number more than $1 million, and if I do my math, 25 million times 4% is $1 million. So I'm just a little confused here.
Confused about the fact that the certified free cash is below our target?
No,
Well, no, you did make a comment that we would try because of Moody's and whatever,
Do you want me to get
to
some
keep
policy?
the 4 to 5% of our budget would be that target,
Yeah.
that number. And he's just saying that if you were to do 4% of our budget, it would be more like $1 million
yes, we
sitting
have
in
to find
certified cash.
a pile it out.
And it's not a policy, they never, I think, who said a selectman wanted to make it a policy, but they never did. The lawyer, what's his name?
Larry?
Larry. I think that was a big issue when Larry was on the board, was it should be, he made a big issue about it. When I think, I'm not sure if you were still on advisory or not. And we didn't like the number that high, we were always trying to stay closer to the perceived, well, no, closer to our certification, our certified cash limit that we set. We always felt like it should have been closer to what we wanted it to be. And that way we felt like our budgeting process was closer to what it should be. But then there are a lot of factors now, I see. But it was something that I think Larry brought up, the 4%, way back when.
I took the opportunity to look at exactly how this is spelled out. So basically, the way that we phrase it in our policy is that the town will endeavor to maintain its free cash in the range of 3 to 5% of the annual budget at the start of the fiscal year. And to achieve this, we're gonna aim to begin each year with a $350,000 free cash balance. So the idea is that basically, if we close out the year and we see we're gonna have 350 of free cash left over, that 350 plus whatever gets certified by the DOR
They
in
came back,
September,
yeah.
the revenue, the turnbacks, all that stuff, those two things combined should be 3 to 5% of the operating budget. And that would be, based on the size of our operating budget, roughly $1 million. Yeah. So we're not hitting that target. All right.
So it's 3 to 5% of the annual budget at the start of the fiscal year. So we're looking for that 841 is within our range. We're looking to start the year with that kind of free cash. And I think we've talked, in order to get there, we need to keep a base level.
350.
Right. So 350 is not spelled out in these policies, but
It's in
that
the
gets
footnote.
us, yeah, there you go.
All right.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right.
That clarifies it, because I think he should be struggling, how did you get there?
Okay. So do we want to just start with account number 114, which is the moderator?
I didn't actually get a moderator budget, so I just put in the same.
Yeah. And again, we're not voting on any of these, we're just talking about it. So this is a request for $50. I don't think there's any cost for it. All right, selectmen. The FY21, there you go. FY21 request is 0% increase over the FY20 approval of $19,620. So if we look at the individual line items under the selectmen, none of those line items are changing. Under account number 123, town administrator, the wages overall, salary and wages are going down 1.99%. And then when you add in the rest of the town administrator line items, this year's request is a total of $274,646, which is 1.53 under last year's.
Does this version of the budget have the COLAs and the steps rolled in?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So why did the wages number go down 10%?
That,
A new hire,
yeah,
Linda left.
Linda Day was replaced.
Lower grade, not lower grade, but lower step than what left.
Right.
Yeah.
Advisory committee,
Yeah, I didn't get a budget from
I
advisory.
know, we're slackers. You know, we'll have to, I will make our decision on the amount for the
We'll burn
reserve
up that
fund.
$20.
But when it comes to the reserve fund, one thing I just wanted to note, so far for this year, I don't think we've used any of our, I don't think we've spent any of our $100,000 in reserves.
I will say their legal's almost
I was
out.
gonna say legal's got like 9,000 left, so,
Don't worry, you will be
we
spending.
will be.
If I recall correctly, last year, things went south in April or May.
Yeah. They went south like fast and hard. Okay, town accountant. So we can talk more about this, but your budget is up 6.38%.
It's that every other year, for the OPEB valuation, that's that $2,000.
Yep.
Some years my budget looks good, some years it looks really high.
So that'll be done, the OPEB evaluation will be done like next fall.
It's usually I pay in February, so, right, I won't pay next month, I'll pay February 21.
Okay.
I don't remember what year I'm in.
And then the salary increase is a function of step and COLA.
Yep.
The Board of Assessors total budget, budget request is 147, sorry, do you have a question?
No,
$147,166. and that's down 2.36% over last year. We have a new assistant assessor who's coming on board, and so there's some difference in the wages. And then we can talk to them about the differences in their software needs for this year, but it's like, on the one hand, it looks like most of their line items haven't changed with the exception of some technical stuff. Like for software support and GIS. Nanashka, did you actually want to say a little bit when we're talking about the treasurer and the tax collector about how they're being combined?
Well, they're being uncombined.
Oh, sorry, yes, yes.
So, yes, so the treasurer collector's position was split to be just the treasurer and a separate tax collector. So they will now have two separate budgets, which is why you see this new, it should say account 146, not 142.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
245.
It'll be 146.
I noticed one of the lines, or one of the treasurer number went down by 63,000, and the tax collector went up by 71,000.
Yeah, so the combined total is steps and COLA increases.
I guess one thing that I wanted to just kind of point out is I went back to look at, like, if you combine the treasurer, the collector, and the HR functions and group them together in FY20, the total request for those three functions was $193,000. And for FY21, combining all those functions together, it's roughly 192. So like $1,000 savings total across those three functions. And part of that is because our treasurer, we don't have a separate HR supervisor. Our treasurer has taken that on and is getting a stipend for performing HR services. So if you look at page 3, budget 147, the requested wages of $9,180, that's, I believe, a $750 monthly stipend times 12.
Yep.
So yeah, again, when you look at just the human resources budget, it looks like it's down 47%. So to me, I think the best way to think about it is to combine all those three numbers and just kind of see where we were over a year, and we're actually down $1,000.
Yeah, it's hard to compare them. They don't really, it's like apples and oranges.
Yeah. So any questions about those so far? Legal services, I know we have a placeholder in there for $50,000, and we burned through that pretty quickly, so
So why don't we increase it so we don't get in trouble?
we can talk about it. Yeah. But
Has it ever been that low?
Well, I see the last 3 years, but. Right.
We had one year, it was 40-something.
yeah, we looked at that last year, right? But it was like, mostly we were above 50.
But we did just increase it 2 years ago, I think.
Fiscal 19.
10 grand.
Oh, yeah.
Increase it to 50 instead of 40?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess if we are choosing to treat it essentially like snow and ice, and know we're always gonna go over, and we make that conscious decision, that's fine. But it looks like we've got almost 100 and 70 and 70, and then we're trying to say, let's make it 50. Doesn't seem super optimistic.
Require more every year, but we keep giving them up. It doesn't take-
I mean, the advisory fund will take care of it, but last year, I think our advisory fund was fairly low at the end of June.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I am anticipating we'll have to actually, now that I think of it, do we have, a request for bumping up the advisory reserve fund built into the budget yet? Like, we always do 25,000,
Oh, no.
okay, so that's not in there yet.
No, it kind of happens, I think, towards like February, March, if, depending, we kind of know where we are, snow and ice, and you have a better sense if there's lots of bills coming,
Yeah.
because some, you know, sometimes it's enough.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, we're in better shape in terms of our reserve this year than we were last year, but I also think legal is way more depleted at this point this year than it was last year,
Yes.
so. Yeah, I mean, so I think, yeah, we should talk about the legal services line item when we vote on it ultimately, but I just, I don't know, it's hard for me to see this being the year when we can actually like increase our budgeted expenditure. All right, MIS, that is a 3% increase over FY '20. So the request there is for $60,000, roughly $60,000.
What's the software support?
Software support and web services,
Yeah, and he did,
I'm not much software support.
Supplies and an extra 100 for, movies?
yeah, I think one of the, they've got, it looks like he has some leases that are expiring, and that might be partially increasing the cost, but it's actually not a huge increase for this year.
Do you remember why we increased repairs to 600 from 180?
I have to look back at last year.
I'm sure there's a reason.
Oh, so maybe, I don't know if one of you was gonna make notes of things I need to follow up on, but somebody just flagged that, like, looking back into why repairs was increased. Yeah. The other thing when he comes in, when Paul comes, it's probably gonna be Paul from CM Geeks, right?
I would assume so.
And Bob, maybe you know about this too, but like, I've been hearing so much about cyber vulnerability and cyber attacks on municipalities.
I did email him, because I was at a meeting with Charlton and they were ransomed, and I came back like, oh my God, what's happening?
Oh,
And he
okay.
gave me a big, long thing that they're doing, and don't worry, we're fine.
But is there any, so what I was gonna ask, and you might know, is there any training for employees about like, because from what I
It's a
understand,
good
it was
idea.
like, it
It's
was a
always,
simple phishing.
it's always some email that somebody clicks
Yeah.
on. I mean, I don't think that's a bad idea.
Yeah, and maybe we could ask Maya too.
That's a good idea. I think they have computer stuff.
We can ask Don when
Yeah.
he comes in. Okay. All right, town clerk. So the wages increase is step and COLA, and then I know she's gonna come in and explain this to us, but there's increase the supplies. Do you remember what that was related to or not, Bill?
I do not. Oh, it's a stamp. It's the timestamp. Now I remember.
Oh, okay.
It ended at 2020.
Oh, there you go.
Y2K?
Exactly.
All over again.
It's been dying a slow death.
Okay.
Wait a minute. She can't spend this money on, oh, okay, so it was increased last year, never mind, sorry.
Oh, elections are up, because
Sure.
there's gonna be a lot of them.
Right.
Mhm.
So just, yeah, for everybody, the request for FY '21 will be $11,630, which is $500 more than last year. And then street listing registrar request. That's like a nearly $600 increase over last year. I don't know the reason for that, so we'll just have to ask him. Yeah, I don't know. It looks like it's all in purchase of services too, so. Conservation Commission budget is down nearly $3,000 from last year, so 3.5%. The planning board budget is up $7,200, 4.73%. And we can talk to Erica about that when she comes in, but it looks
I'm
like
sure it's wages.
it's mostly
yeah,
wages.
it's step in grade or
Yeah.
step in COLA.
No change in appeals board, which is $200. No change in ag commission, which is $1,746. No change in economic development budget, which is $1,000. And
Excuse me, but going back to planning board, the increase over FY '20, I think the column's not correct, right? It's correct for wages, but underneath that,
Which one, Ron?
for planning board,
I don't know what that one-
Union.
Oh, wait,
Purchase
No,
of
you're right.
services?
no, the increase number is,
Define
there's
number
a,
of
there's a formula error there. So.
Oh,
sorry, I'm like totally not seeing. Wait, we're talking
Oh,
about
that's
planning
fine.
board?
for planning board,
Yep.
where it says increase over FY '20,
Oh, right, yeah, you're right.
the wages number is correct, but the numbers below that are
Yep.
suspect.
Because they're all the same.
That 7291 is taking the 4250 in,
Saying it's over more
It's-
than what it is.
it shouldn't be that, should take that 4250 out.
Yeah.
It's just capturing the one cell above it.
Good catch.
Now we do the big review, right?
Town, did we say town buildings?
No, you haven't.
You were just starting off.
So town building budget is to request $145,000, which is $1,600 more than last year's, so that's only a 1.1% increase. And town hall request is 192 is,
Can I bring up one thing about the town buildings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Joe had added a mileage line, you see the gas mileage line. I'm not a fan of adding accounts, so if you could ask him about that when you,
what do you want us to ask him?
Where's the,
why? Why do we need to break it out? Can't he just track it?
oh, it's up at the top.
I mean,
Oh, I see
adding
it,
more
it's top.
accounts is, I'm not a fan of adding more and more accounts. I think we have too many accounts.
Is this supposed to be for the
His
vehicle the
personal?
town's providing to you?
It's the, so I'm
Because
sure it's the custodian,
Yeah,
the mileage for the custodian, but I feel like that should be in repairs and maintenance, like, I don't know why we need to break it out.
oh,
If he wants to track it separately, like, just put it on an Excel spreadsheet, it just doesn't seem worth breaking out a separate account number for.
so
So that's not a new budgeted item, he's just separating it out of somewhere
he's
else?
moving it out of DPW, right?
Okay,
He's moving it out of part of the DPW budget.
Gotcha.
So it looks,
I mean, I don't know.
unless I'm missing something, it looks like we still have a miscellaneous line item in there.
Yes.
Well, that's because the actual's still there. I have to keep it until next year it'll go away, finally.
Okay. And so you're saying you'd be fine with leaving the actual amount in the 190 town buildings budget, but just rolling it up into like,
I mean, why not
5240.
repairs and maintenance? I mean, it just seems like to break out a line, it's up to you guys.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to collapse accounts instead of adding accounts, but I'll do whatever you guys decide.
Okay, we can,
What was his rationale for that, did you know?
He's got new
Shit,
custodial
yeah.
vehicle, I wonder if that is what it's.
No, it's just, it's to reimburse her for mileage,
Oh,
so maybe he didn't want it coming out of DPW.
oh.
I have no idea.
Well, we can ask him and see what he says.
okay, so we'll ask about that.
Did you write that down, Joe?
All right, and the
Why is it
budget
not-
for 192 town hall is, no increase, it's 29,135. Town reports, no increase, $3,700.
You
For,
skip building.
Yeah, building insurance.
oh, because it's all under 935 now, right?
So what this brings up is, like we talked about today, why general government was down 3.5%. That's why, because we're taking that out and putting it in insurance. So actually, if you were to put it back in, that it's basically flat. It was like 0.35% increase.
Okay.
That's why it's decreased. Remember when we were
Yep.
talking about that today? So I don't know if we wanna, I mean, that's a separate question, you know, on the, we have other insurance broken out in the, you know, on the summary page. Do you want it broken out? Do you want it back in general government? Like, it was always strange to me that half of our insurance was in general government and the other half was in this just other insurance group. Whereas you've got, you know, public safety, education, but it just seems to have that one thing out on the bottom. Again, something to talk about. think
Wait,
about.
so are you expressing a preference?
No, just,
The commercial package and the umbrella policy, that's not just for town hall. That would be for the library and for public safety and for
right,
town
it's
hall.
everything.
So everything else in town government's generally centered on this building.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So it seems like a broad enough kind of insurance.
To be in its own,
To be grouped with the insurance rather than, it's
So-
a big enough number too, that it deserves its own.
So that's why you'll see the giant increase
Mm-hmm.
in insurance. Because we're moving that, so all the insurances are together. Because now it's one policy.
Right.
We don't have 6 separate policies.
What is the single account number going to be?
so if you go to page
900, 945 maybe?
14 of the spreadsheets, the last page.
Oh, okay.
Department 945.
These numbers look wrong. Total insurance says it went down by 39,000. Yet the increase over whatever percentage is 39%. That sounds like it went up, but it looks backwards. And also, I don't see that this doesn't seem to be going up by 55,000 or so. Which is what we just took out of this other line, right? Yes, took out 960. I would have expected something close to that to be added to 945.
Well, the insurance has all changed. Don can speak to that. I don't know why, I didn't do these numbers. I mean, the addition is my error, but I didn't come up with the insurance numbers.
Yeah, so we can figure out whether there was a spreadsheet error, but if we can pause for a moment just to look at the sub-accounts, because my understanding is that under 5740 general insurance,
Yeah.
that now wraps into it the police professional liability, the motor vehicle, and the public official liability, which had all previously been separately broken out, in addition to like our general commercial and umbrella.
So that explains.
The dash was, right?
Yeah, so it
Why there's
explains
no amount.
why it's 73,000 instead of 55, because you're
Sure.
adding
Yeah, there's other components.
those other things into it. But yeah, we can we can talk about it when they come in, but that's generally where it's moved to, right? No, that's good.
I'm sorry, I wasn't
Yeah.
listening. I wasn't
Just
listening.
agree.
Sorry,
Come on.
sure.
Okay, so, ready to move on to public safety? So the public safety building budget, 200, is, the request is $198,000, which is 0.6% lower than last year. So that's good.
And then,
Counts as a
Kind of
win.
wonder,
It's a
yeah,
win.
makes you wonder. Okay, so software support's down, but software support at MIS is up. This is hard to, a lot.
Yeah, it looks like some things are down. Trash and telephone are up. Lorraine usually does a good job of explaining it all, so
Yes.
we can ask her when she.
How can telephone go up?
Yeah, that much.
I don't know.
Ask her.
That's a big number.
it is a big number.
Yeah.
Something broken up into 2 accounts last year?
Something about the telephone stuff. too. Didn't we get more?
Yeah, well, we approved 12,700 and something.
Well, there's a
And it's
reason,
gone up to
we went
60.
back.
Did they have to get some kind of a new system or something?
I honestly have no idea.
Well, that's not,
Yeah.
that's mobile phones as well? Was it?
I think you have to wait until they come in.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, that was
But they've got
DPW.
radios.
That was DPW.
Right, it wasn't mobile phones, it was a
the
radio
bulky,
system.
yeah, but,
Why the
well,
phone?
somebody, but I thought they wanted to keep mobile phones, but not.
No, they don't, not like
So this is good.
So that's something to add to the list of things, yeah. All right, 210, the police department itself. Salary and wages, including overtime and disability insurance, as a whole, are up 8.5%.
We've always had a battle with this overtime.
And this also does not include the new contract that's that'll be negotiated.
So salaries may change.
Well, this will remain, I mean, so we do have that compensation reserve account in
Dawn's
Department
budget.
123, so that should absorb any,
Changes. Right.
30.
well, I don't know what they're, who knows?
I don't want to put you on the spot, but since you're here, is there anything that you want us to be asking when police come in to meet with us? Anything that jumps out at you? I mean, let me just add or contextualize. So like, on our end, we have no involvement in the way that
Right,
the contract negotiations
right.
go, but I think you guys do.
Yep.
So I would say like, to the extent you have either insights or questions around the salary and wages stuff.
Well, correct me if I'm saying any of this incorrectly, Namashka. We're in a contract period now, it goes till June.
Right.
This is our best guess of what, I don't know, whose best guess? Is this Chief Nelson's best guess of?
Well, there were new things in this current contract, there's now a senior patrol officer, new steps, new pay increases, so that's in here, but whatever they
It doesn't include any additional
right,
negotiations?
if they negotiate any COLAs or
Right.
new salary increases.
So is that retroactive? I mean, if they sign in June, or is it done in June?
No, it won't be. It's usually 2 years behind.
2 years behind?
Yeah, I mean,
2 years?
Like this one ends in 5 months and we
it wasn't
haven't
started
started.
until September, this past September or something like that.
Right.
So basically, there was a 2-year, the 3-year, it was a 3-year contract, but it wasn't settled until you were halfway through the third year.
Right,
Or at the start of the third year.
constantly behind.
So, I mean, but that's the point of the compensation reserve, is to cover the expenses for the current year.
Gotcha.
So.
So we don't run into that like retro pay
Right.
that we had to go to town
And
meeting.
as far as what's in the new contract, I'm not gonna go negotiate in public,
No.
No.
right?
But
We're-
why
We are
are
not gonna negotiate in public, so.
What's the reasoning for being so far in arrears? Like, why does it take so long?
There were a lot of issues that just took
A long time.
a long time. There was a lot of discussion. There was a lot of discussion.
Must have been for 3 years.
Well, maybe this will go faster.
Yeah.
One can hope.
Do I have to put this spotlight
Yeah,
on that?
well, thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you.
So,
wasn't easy
but back to
answering
your question, I don't know what assumptions went into an almost 10% increase in wages. I've got suspicions of what those might be, but the contract isn't one of those suspicions, because no one should be trying to figure out what the contract's gonna be.
Yeah, I don't think that's what that is.
So, you know, I think contract or no contract, I'd like to understand that wages increase of $88,000 better.
And that's not overtime in there at all, so.
Again, I've got some suspicions about what it might be, but I could be 100% wrong, so it's not any point in voicing them, but I think it's worth asking the question.
Okay, well, that's helpful. So, apart from that nearly $89,000 increase in wages, what I'll call generally like the supplies line items, the request there is down $5,000. The repairs line items for the cruiser and the gas and the tires and supplies, that's a flat request of $51,700. And then the other thing, which I'm sure will be like a substantive discussion point, is that their request for a cruiser in FY '21 is $53,750, which I believe is for another truck. But I didn't see that spelled out in the paperwork they submitted, but I'm assuming that's what it is. Do you know, Nanachka?
Nope.
Yeah, I think they're asking for another F-150. So we can ask them about that. Okay. Fire department,
I'm sorry. I just looked at their gas line because it got me thinking pickup truck is gonna be more gas. Their actual gas spend is 24,000 for 19, and they're only asking for 14.
Hmm.
I think that's a question you wanna bring up.
Yeah, because even
That's
the
a lot of
prior
fuel
years was
efficiency.
higher. Can't be getting a truck.
I have no idea what their actual spend so far this year is. I could pull it up, but,
No idea.
Well, of course, this was all done before the whole price of gasoline shot up after what happened in Tehran.
as we head into discussion of the fire department, Nanachka, did you wanna just briefly, this is the one we are combining, so.
Yeah, so I didn't know if you wanted me to just fold it in now, or if you wanted to, that's why I broke it up. Jeff and I kind of, he was kind of picking the few ones to leave in the ambulance account, knowing we're gonna roll it up, but I just to see year-to-date numbers. So I don't know if you want me to just collapse it now, like, is this more confusing, less confusing?
I don't think it
Fire
is.
EMS, so Department 220 and Department 231 are going to now be a new Department 230. It's gonna be its own separate, brand-new department.
And that's because,
So the fire and EMS combined as of January 1st. So they're not two separate departments anymore.
So
that's good.
that will be led by Chief Legendre. Margie Diaz will still be involved as like the ambulance
I
coordinator.
think she'll be doing the EMT.
Okay.
I'm
I
don't say, I'm not quite sure, but.
Yeah.
Might be true.
Okay. So I don't know what the rest of you feel like. I think I'm at a point where I probably would prefer to just have it all combined.
Me too.
It's gonna be one department.
Yeah.
It should be.
Okay.
Anybody feel differently?
So what I'll do for the actuals is I'll just add them all together. So.
Yeah.
You may see some anomalies because of this, combination stuff, but at least the bottom line numbers. I think this is confusing. To have to flip back and forth and you're trying to like, oh my God, it's so high, but wait, you gotta add ambulance and,
Could you do me a favor though? When you do combine them for the like historical, like the actual numbers, would there be a way for you to just plug in what the actual totals for fire and ambulance were in those years and have that be, would that work?
what do you mean, add,
Like, so if we're looking at the new 230 department and we want to compare how much that costs versus what was previously two departments, are you able to just put in like actual FY 2017, plug in the number that was fire plus ambulance?
so like purchase of services would be the 8,063 plus the 3,960.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do.
Oh, okay, perfect.
I think one number that's gonna, need some explanation later is the ALS services number. Under ambulance, 5201 right now. Right, because ALS said they're gonna stop servicing Bolton. So that number's gonna change.
Oh, the 30, advanced
32.
life support,
Ambulance service,
okay.
the 30,000.
yeah. It may,
It's a good question.
yeah.
Do we keep it? Are we still gonna use Woods and Patriot? Because if we are, then keep this. I don't know.
Well, I think that's gonna get worked out between now and whenever.
Right.
So I don't think you have a copy of this yet.
I do not.
It just came in today. Basically, we can talk about this now, but what this is it's a sort of a capital project request by the chief to basically start funding Bolton's establishment of an advanced life support department. And as I understand it, like we haven't talked with him about this yet, but the money needed for this fiscal year would be $177,000, which would be pulled from the ambulance receipts reserved fund. So we have that money, and he's deferring the purchase of an ambulance.
He has a lot more information
Yeah.
when he comes in.
Wait, you had a question?
No, I was saying, well, we used the receipts for other things
Yeah,
and now we can't.
so what happened? So,
So what happened?
That is also my question, because we were using part of that to fund,
The new ambulance, right?
or to fund the operating budget. for-
Yeah, that's true too.
So, do we still get to take some of that money? Because if not, that's a big hit too. I just plugged in 50 grand in here, just.
Yeah.
Because
Nice round number.
it's round number.
Where'd you put 50 grand?
In the,
Request or?
where is it?
It would be on the second page of the spreadsheet. The
Other
revenue-
available funds.
Yeah, the bottom of the page.
Oh, okay, that's what you were planning to pull, okay.
Yeah, so I'm still unclear what to do with that
Yeah,
number
I
until we
think
talk
it's
to
gonna
Jeff.
take a couple of weeks for that all to clarify.
Yeah,
But we know people are working on it, it's just that when it comes time to look at this part of the budget, we need to make sure we ask the question.
and the wages firefighter number is high, I would ask about that too.
This is the proposal to basically set up Bolton. Actually, I'll just say a little bit, like, in case people don't. So previously, the town of Bolton and a few other towns locally got their advanced life support services from, it's called Woods, is that?
Yeah.
Um,
It was what,
Yeah.
right?
So, and that was like a
Oh, that's right.
private company that had, as I understand it, had certain facilities located in Lancaster, so they were close, so Bolton would use them, and it like was a way for us to save money. That entire unit is being relocated to Gardner, which is where Woods is based, so it's not an option for us anymore.
Right.
And so what our chief is looking at doing is exploring the feasibility of actually Bolton establishing advanced life support services here and regionally sharing that service with some other towns.
So the initial cost would be 177?
Right, and it also would generate revenue too. Like they would bill out,
Well, sure, it's other towns.
Right.
But wouldn't we want, well, he'd have more information
yeah,
on it.
yeah.
We contacted other towns.
Oh, yeah, he's
How
done a
that
bunch of
works.
research on
Okay.
that.
All right, we'll have to wait and talk with him then. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll learn a lot from
Yeah,
him.
I think it'll be interesting.
So in some ways, it's we don't have that much to talk about for that one.
Firefighters, just ask about the wage line. It's
Okay.
like almost 10%.
Full-time?
No, just the call firefighters. I'm sure that's
Oh,
due to an
I see.
increase in calls, but
Okay.
not sure.
Oh, 10%, yeah.
Okay, yep, we can do that. And then
Hmm.
next is, we'll skip ahead to 241 building inspector. The request is a $600 increase over last year's.
COLA.
Yep. Plumbing and gas inspector, that's COLA too.
Yep.
That's 2% COLA increase, same thing with the wiring inspector. So those are all cost of living increases. Then the emergency management, which is like the code red,
Mhm.
right? That's not changing. And the increase for animal control officer, that's COLA.
Mhm.
Same thing with traffic lights, although, wait, no,
No,
sorry, the,
No, keep them.
you don't give them a cost of living increase.
They're not living.
We're not in that part of the 21st century yet. Well, it's only a $300 increase, but it's a 20% increase.
Where is it in the?
Well, it's
Percent cost?
293. Tree warden budget is flat, and then the dispatchers, you wanna tell us about that?
So that number is going to go down. I am on the finance board for the dispatch center, and I have a meeting tomorrow, and we're gonna try to hammer out try to bring that number down. But I've been told it's not gonna stay that high, so I'll keep you informed.
Why is it so high? So much more than the year before?
They had a giant contract negotiation with their dispatchers, so there's big salary increase there.
So what are you gonna say tomorrow to persuade them to?
Don't negotiate in public.
There you go.
No,
Can't negotiate in
Don't
public.
negotiate.
I'm with him.
um,
Still cheaper than if we had our own dispatch.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Okay. Education.
Yeah.
So so one thing I guess I wanna just point out is, in this budget, we're assuming a 3% increase in our assessment, which,
We originally had 4%, and then, we had a finance meeting today, and it's kind of decided that we wanna put in a 3%, tell the school this is what we
See
can
where,
live with,
yeah,
cause,
because what
I
was
mean,
last year, like 5%? Was it high?
nearly, yeah, it was.
Yeah, nearly.
it's just untenable,
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
can't,
you know, with 3%, we're $400,000 that we have to cut out of our budget. So
so, yeah, by cutting that percent, it was like $150,000,
so-
which isn't,
every percent it goes up, that's,
Look at that.
I mean, you saw town government expenses are going down, central government expenses are going down, and yet we still have a $400,000 deficit as we start this process. So the school district has to come to grips with the needs of the different towns' finances. Bolton's not the only town that's facing these kind of restrictions financially.
So on that note, if anyone can attend Tri-Town tomorrow, I urge you to.
I left Minuteman at 4. Don is gonna talk to somebody he knows over there and see if they have a sense yet. It's still
Where's
early.
Tri-Town? Where's the meeting tomorrow?
I think it's right here. Let me see if I put it in my,
But it's at 7, I don't remember though if it's here at Holton Building. But yeah, I mean, basically at the Tri-Town meeting tomorrow, the agenda is to talk about the school's operating and, capital budget among other things.
I didn't put the location, so it must be in this room.
Must be here.
Oh, that's a good point. When you said capital, so.
It's actually at the Houghton Building.
It is?
Yep,
Okay,
the Houghton Building,
thank you.
We don't have any capital requests from the school.
right.
I'm with you, but they always wait till the last minute.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that'd be a great, like, if you have capital requests, they need to be into us. I mean, they shouldn't be any different
Then the
than,
rest
I
of the
think they're
departments in
way-
town.
What kind of capital requests?
so keep that in mind. That's not on here.
Well,
Whatever
what
they-
I'm getting at is, they've been accepted to the next step.
Right.
Right?
But I don't know if there's any more carpet or painting or
Yeah,
that kind of capital stuff.
and,
Yeah, general.
You know, they shouldn't get to,
well,
Put it in
let me
whatever
say,
you
let me
want.
say this much about the process. One of the decisions the school district has to make is whether or not they want to come to the towns in May and ask for money for the feasibility study, or whether they want to ask the towns for a special town meeting in the fall to ask for money. Because now that they've been invited, there is a time limit.
what is the time limit?
I think it's 9 months. It's not, I know it's not a full year,
Oh, wow.
School year.
but they were accepted 5-6 weeks ago,
Yeah, it's December sometime.
and I think they've got to either move ahead or go to the bottom of the pile by November or December of next year. And
So they may come this May for a feasibility.
I'm speculating.
It's possible.
It's purely speculation on my part that they're trying to figure out if they want to submit a raft of, another question would be, did they submit capital projects to any other towns?
That's a good question.
Or are they gonna do one big one for feasibility study and bypass the small ones? I'm just speculating. I have no insight that that's what's really going on.
So according to the letter from the MSBA, the local vote to authorize a feasibility study would have to be taken by February 26th, 2021. So you're
Okay.
right,
Oh.
there's basically
May or a
May
special.
or a special in the fall.
If we're gonna do it anyway, I'd rather not pay for a special town meeting.
Right.
Right.
You know, if I'm on the school district, to be fair to them, I want to take the temperature of the communities and figure out when am I going to be most successful.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right.
All right, because the danger is if you try to get it in
We rush it.
to rush it, you're gonna miss some basic steps. You're gonna not have the time to do the proper education. So, just saying, I think they've
It's
got
too
to be
bad I have to go to
careful.
the airport tomorrow. I'd go to that meeting. You'll have to give me a little download.
All right, so hopefully, Dawn Lowe will be able to give us some sense of whether our 4% assumption for Minuteman is, like, where that is. Is it
Right.
in the ballpark?
Right, because last year I think it was like 8% or something.
Yeah,
It was
it was
high.
And then post-secondary voc ed,
And I don't have a clue about that. We don't know yet, so that could be double that could be 0, no idea. We have to wait.
now remind me again, we get those numbers from the district, not Minuteman, right?
That's right.
Okay. Moving along, Public Works. The highway department salary and wages increase, that's mostly step and COLA, right?
Yeah, but this is also not their
Oh,
contract.
oh, right,
They're,
right, right.
they're out of contract too in this, so
Okay,
that's why it's so low.
yeah, the total increase now is 1.85%.
Like the only number in that, like that 1.67%, that's just gotta be a step for somebody.
Yep.
So none of the like COLA increases are in there.
Okay. It looks like he's virtually kept everything else the same, except for stickers.
It was the printing cost for the dump stickers, folks, again.
Oh, that's, yeah, yes. That's because they're coming out with a new system.
I'd just like to know what the spends are, show it, right?
There's a menu fee schedule, isn't there?
Oh, yeah. You know what, that's-
Before it happens, so
We can make sure we drill into that when we meet with them.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Budget 422, construction and maintenance, appears to be a level funded request. And snow and ice is set at 180, as usual. Slight increase in the street lighting budget, and a few significant increases in the transfer station budget. And as I understand it, it's related mostly to contract terms, like new contracts and the terms in those new contracts.
For trash disposal, I don't know.
So, if you don't mind, I look at the, I stepped up in the back of it, street lighting, the electric cost has remained the same. Yet traffic lighting costs, or traffic light costs have gone up by 42.8%. Why is that?
Sorry, which one is the 42.8?
200 Street, the first line.
But that 42.8% is $300, right?
Sure. But it still went up a significant chunk compared to this other one where it went up 0.
Well,
I think it's the cost of parts for old systems.
It's not repairs, I'm talking only about the electric one.
I'll have to ask Joe.
Yeah, I don't know.
You can go on your list.
Yep.
well,
You're gonna have a long list.
transfer station, why is there ever any overtime? I mean, I thought,
So what was that question again, Craig? I don't know, why is
we have so many hours to
There were
work.
2 people though, and someone left and someone else picked it up.
Somebody's on vacation,
Oh,
somebody's
yeah,
out
yeah.
sick.
It's really that.
Yep.
I have a general question about heating and electrical costs throughout this. Was there some uniform formula applied, or did each department supply its own numbers?
Each department's supplied their own.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have some questions about the transfer station when we have Joe Lynch to come in. The landfill well monitoring budget is flat. The sewer purchase of services budget is flat. The water well monitoring budget is flat, and cemetery. So is Joe Lynch, the cemetery budget is within DPW, but we also have like a cemetery commission, right?
Trustees.
Or trustees?
Historical.
We do?
I thought
Yeah,
so.
so, yeah, we have the cemetery trustees, I think we did.
I get-
Cemetery commission.
Yeah.
Commission.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm
I
wondering.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm wondering who's responsible for keeping track of any potential capital requests that the cemetery.
Joe.
I think Joe is on the cemetery commission
Oh, okay.
with a couple other people.
Is it Martha
Probably.
Remington?
Uh,
She
I
used to
wanna-
be, I don't know if she still is.
So I think Joe's a member of the cemetery
Yeah,
commission,
he would know.
and that's how we keep.
Looks like it's Joe Lynch, Brenda Baum, Roger Breeze, and Betsy Taylor Kennedy.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, we can ask them that. All right, next, Human Services Board of Health. COLA, and I guess we can ask them about it. I'm sure it's an increase from whatever the Neshoba Associated Boards of
I
Health
think it goes up
charges.
5% every year.
Nursing, that also looks like it's a strict 5% increase. Council on Aging, total budget request is down,
So what they're
Nice.
proposing
yeah,
is to make a revolving account for the MARC drivers, which I don't think is a bad idea. I mean, that's,
and so it would apply to both the driver's wages and the gas.
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So what I wanted to ask you, I'm glad you brought this up, are there any other budgets where something similar is happening or could happen?
I don't think so. I mean, it's really if you generate fees for something and use those fees to pay for the program costs.
And just to make sure I understand the mechanics, the reason I understand this is even a possibility is because we budget for van drivers, we budget for gas. Whatever we spend is fully reimbursed by MARC, but there's a lag,
Right.
right?
Right.
So basically the idea is we're essentially raising money through taxation that we know we're gonna get reasourced, so why not just
Yeah.
take
I mean,
it
it makes
off?
sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't know why
I wouldn't.
it wasn't done. I don't know the reasoning.
Yeah.
How many revolving accounts do we have?
Like true revolving accounts that you have to have, re-upped every year at town meeting.
The school district had an issue controlling all of its revolving accounts a few years ago.
Yep.
And part of the issue was they had so many that no one could keep track of all of them. And
Oh, we
they
don't
weren't-
have,
They weren't being audited properly, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I know we've implemented 2 or 3 revolving accounts in the past few years, and I was wondering,
we
how
have,
many do we have now?
so we have the EMT cadets, the municipal, software fees, tax title, and now this one. So that would only be 4. We also have, like gifts and donation accounts, so they're not really true revolving accounts, but the
Right.
money stays in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And our auditors are really good about, we tie every year to, all of my accounts, they go to the departments and make sure, so I'm not worried that we're
Okay.
missing any.
And I don't know if everybody's aware that we have a new Council on Aging director.
No.
Um,
Well, I knew that, yeah, I guess I knew we were going to.
yeah, so that's Lisa Dion,
Mm-hmm.
so she'll come for her first meeting with us, but I think that'll be great. Veteran Services, budget 543 is,
Okay, question.
Yeah.
Go back to director. So is this no longer,
Sheila?
Sheila,
Right,
Sheila,
she moved, she retired.
she retired, so
So
it's
it's
costing
Lisa
us
now.
more for this director than it
I think
cost
she's
us
doing
for
more
Sheila.
hours. Sheila only had 20 hours.
Let me see if we have,
Oh. I'm not, how do I know how many hours people work?
It should be in their backup sheets that it should be in the binder. Like if they're supposed to fill out, which I end up doing for them, so salary sheets with their hours. And, let's see, so council on aging.
That's interesting to me, I'm sure I should compare.
1,248 hours. I don't know what that equates to for.
So why the need for more hours? Didn't we hire and do all these other things, the software and everything to make it easier and more things to do, and didn't we? We increased hours for someone else, we had another
So it looks like
person.
24 hours. So it looks like it went from 20 to 24.
And so, why is she working more? Who approved more and she couldn't do it in 24 hours like Sheila did? All of us did? You know,
I think Lisa was working a ton unpaid.
that could be it, but it would answer a question.
yeah, we should ask.
I just don't like to assume why it's more.
So veteran services budget is, increasing just over 2%.
So, veteran services, so I still can't put those receipts, we should be getting money for all that money that we paid out for veteran services.
Isn't that supposed to be reimbursed?
Yeah, but
it's
I don't know what the lag is, and I can't really put it in the budget until
You get it?
it shows up on the cherry sheet as an estimated local aid payment, so it's
How, is it lag by a year?
like 18 months, at least.
Oh, that's a lot.
It shouldn't be that long, but. So maybe we'll get good news and that, I wouldn't hold my breath then. I would definitely ask him when he comes in if he thinks this 36,000 is a good solid number, or if he just,
So does he have to he has to ask for the reimbursement?
Yeah.
So maybe we should also ask him about that, because it might be his
I've asked.
bookkeeping,
Oh, it's not him, no,
Oh,
it's the
okay.
state. Yeah, no, Kristen's tried to get in touch with it, it just takes so long.
okay.
Do you happen to know whether the meetings request was a typo? Do you know, did he submit it or did you do it? Because it went from 500 to 1,500,
I don't know.
and I didn't see any explanation or justification.
No, it's him, but I don't know why.
So we'll ask about that too.
Yep.
Just make sure he's writing it. Okay. Check it out.
All right, and 590 was zeroed out last year.
Yep.
Okay, so as it stands, the total human services budget is increasing 1.09%.
That's manageable.
What?
That's manageable.
Yeah. Library, salary and wages going up 3.68%. As best I could tell, that was all COLAs and step
Yep.
increases. And then purchase of services,
They're almost 3%, but that's only 350.
we'll have to ask what the 350 is, and I also, the books increase is just the percentage.
Yep.
The formula. So the total library budget is increasing 2.74%. Parks and Rec, we have a part-time Parks and Rec coordinator, and those are step-in COLAs, those wages increases.
Yeah, cause I think that 12,095 was just, that wasn't an actual salary
Right.
number, that was just an estimated.
Now, they have an increased purchase of services request of $3,000. I actually chatted with Laura Roberts about this. So basically, and you might know about this, the lights at Memorial Field, there's been vandalism, and so basically this $3,000 purchase of services request is an estimate of what it would cost to basically protect that asset. But I know I believe she was gonna go back and try to talk to maybe Joe Lynch and maybe even somebody at the police department to find out whether there's,
When you say protect, like insurance? Or
no, like a physical,
person?
like a
Yeah.
structure.
Oh,
Screen or something like that.
I
Yeah,
got you. Cage.
yeah. So,
Mm.
but when she told me about it, I was like, seems kind of expensive. Is there another way?
How about a security camera? Less?
Yeah.
What do you do when you see them?
Arrest them, vandalism,
You'd have to
The
press
kids
charges.
monitor by the police.
talk to their mothers, I mean,
Oh, no, they pay for it. They get fined.
I don't know.
It wasn't the free cash kind.
Yeah. So, we'll ask about that. Historical Commission budget is flat. And same thing with the Memorial Day celebration. So the total culture and recreation budget increase is 3.26%. And then we've got all of our debt stuff. I don't really wanna spend a ton of time on that. I think since it's already getting pretty late, my proposal would be that we just quickly turn to, so if we can go back to the beginning of our packets, it's the fourth printed page, where, it's the one that looks like this.
Do you wanna do employee benefits?
Virtually none of those numbers are real with the exception of OPEB, right?
No, yeah, so,
Yeah.
they'll change, there'll be plenty of time.
So yeah, this page reflects all the capital requests that we have gotten so far from the town, and obviously, as we mentioned, there's nothing related to the school so far.
What's the Forest Mill property acquisition?
I
don't under a rock.
have to say, I don't
I just saw
really
an
know
article.
much about it, and I didn't.
I know that it's the property,
It's 31 acres off of Fort Bush Mill Road.
Yeah.
Conservation
On the
sponsoring.
soccer fields up above that, or?
Yeah, up above
Above
that, well, the hill,
Yeah.
and all the way over to, I don't know how long you've been in town, the Creighton Hamel development,
Hmm.
that's over on Wilder.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah, it was Creighton Hamel that put up those homes.
yeah.
So it's a mix of marsh, woodland, downhill, upwind. What's interesting is, to me, it's a very minor historical detail, but the train used to take a left there and go into Lancaster right through that terrain. It basically followed the street for,
So if the town buys it, how much money do we lose in taxes?
Who owns it now? Do you know?
I don't know the name. I mean, I've seen the for sale sign on Fort Bush Mill when you go to the transfer station. I don't know who owns it now.
I'm sure when Rebecca comes in, she was the one who's, the conservation sponsoring the article, so I'm sure they have information.
I should add that to my list though of follow-up. I wanna see if, cause I didn't see anything in our packets about this, unless I missed it. But I'm sure they have some sort of paperwork that they could send that gives background.
If, at the selectmen's meeting several months ago, when Rebecca first came and asked if conservation could pursue it, there was a simple one-page description, there wasn't, and a map.
Oh, okay.
There wasn't a whole lot.
Do you remember whether, like, what the basic purpose of it was? Was it intended to just be a purely conservation type of a purchase, or a recreation opportunity? Like, what?
It wasn't described either way. It was more, this is a very, very varied, very mixed terrain. And
Does that include the old mill site?
where, you mean the Forbush?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's, I think that's already town property,
I think
all right? But it's more,
It's a lot of sandy
yeah,
hills.
yeah, I don't know how to describe it. There's conservation land there already, right on 117, and then this would back up to that. And there wasn't it wasn't made clear if this was to be strictly for conservation use or, you know, I would guess that it's too hilly and too marshy to turn it into soccer fields or baseball fields or stuff like that. But I don't know for sure.
Could be watershed preservation or something.
Something like that.
$500,000. Okay.
Well, on that note, so this year, as we discussed previously, Don Lowe is kind of leading the process of analyzing and prioritizing the capital requests. So he'll be taking a look at all of these and offering his sense of the priorities. We'll see where the Forbush Mill property acquisition falls.
So what about capital planning?
So what's,
They're not having it anymore.
so are you gonna have Don come in after you talk to the department heads about their capital requests? Or like, what's the timeline? Do you have one yet?
I don't, I'll ask Don what he
Okay.
thinks. Yeah.
And so capital planning is
Suspended for the
Taking a
year,
hiatus.
just for the year?
just for the year.
Oh, wow.
You missed that one.
They lost a bunch of members.
Oh,
There are still a couple, but they lost a bunch of members in the past 2 years.
And you need a pretty robust capital plan
Yeah.
to make it worthwhile. Excuse me.
So I think that probably wraps up the high level run through. Just a couple practical questions. How would people feel about starting at 6:30? Is that an option? Not for you?
It's not good for me, but
doable?
I could do it.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, maybe like just for the first few, try to. Okay.
Well, yeah, maybe you could, well, it's hard to say just for the first few because you're setting up schedules.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you can't just change on the fly.
Why don't we?
So when is the next meeting?
So
Next Tuesday.
I'd like to try to get it. Basically, assume every Tuesday from here.
In
forward.
perpetuity.
Are we doing Tuesday, Wednesday again?
No, oh yeah, so that was in November we talked about trying to just stick with Tuesdays, and then if we need to, as we get to crunch time, like the end of February, double up maybe if we have to.
So our next meeting will be,
The
Tuesday.
14th at 6:30. Agenda TBD.
Right.
But you're gonna try to have department heads come in.
Yeah.
Right?
So, and we don't have the others yet. We don't have them grouped and decided how.
Do you guys wanna talk about how
We
you
always had a
wanna
method to
structure
our
it?
madness,
Like, do you
yeah,
wanna have public safety all in one night? Do you wanna have,
right.
just give Brian an idea of how to put
Well,
the schedule together?
Let's have the tax assessors at a certain time too.
I'm not gonna be able to make the 21st.
Okay. Well, so last year,
Like, I think public safety's good to have all, like, you have Jeff, Bumper, you know, like that.
That's a lot of detail in one night.
I was gonna say, my only concern about that is they're both, like, I'd almost want a night with police
Kinda
and then
too.
a few
Oh, yeah?
smaller,
Alright.
a night with
Yeah.
fire and a few smaller.
Yes, there's
Like-
no time left, yeah.
So maybe what we could do is talk about, are there any departments where we all agree that we want, like, we want a meeting that mostly is about that department and then a few smaller ones tacked
I
on?
agree with that.
So who,
Rationale.
so we'd say police, we'd say fire/ambulance, DPW,
Those are the three big ones.
Library, different nights,
and
Yeah.
library a different night.
definitely.
And then we can try to do,
Like all of
I mean, maybe you
Don's.
can have Joe come in next week. I mean, there's nothing he's waiting for, right? Or, I mean, just, because he is the big capital, he is, you know, I mean, maybe it's worth talking to him first,
It would be nice to talk to him first in case we have to bring people back,
right?
and then we can see.
Because he's
how
not
it
waiting, it's not like, whereas you're waiting on health insurance or you're waiting on
Right.
different,
goes. Right.
yeah,
and he has the
Stuff is
bulk
in.
of the capital requests, just to start those discussions earlier rather than later.
And we have school as well.
yeah.
And school sort of comes in when they're ready.
Ninotchka, I meant to ask at today's meeting, I forgot. Do you know if there's a published schedule of the budget process? Like,
For us?
well, not just for us, but not just for the town departments, but things like when do citizens petitions have to be filed to be on the warrant? When's the warrant gonna close? All that other fun stuff.
Don had sent a memo out with a budget message with, like, you know, when the warrant's gonna close, but I don't, do you remember if it had citizens, I don't know.
He sent out an email like that.
Something
Yeah,
last year. I'll,
yeah.
I'll send him an email asking
It
him.
would be nice to put something like that
On,
on
Yeah.
on the
the
website.
website.
Somebody asked me a few weeks ago, and we didn't want it.
Yeah, like caucus, I think is March 2nd, or it's early.
Yeah.
It's a good idea, like important dates to remember,
Yeah,
kind of thing on
and you
the,
can put it on the
Good
website.
idea.
Mm.
It's a good idea.
All right, I'll ask him to do that.
So what I'll do is we'll try to coordinate to have DPW and maybe,
I can do it.
maybe the tree warden, Mark Case,
Amazing.
and you, like, for next week.
Yeah.
And then I'll also, I'll circulate like a draft schedule for everybody to kind of take a look at. All right.
And if you could give like what you think was realistic times, because sometimes like it would have, like some of those schedules would have like, please, 20 minutes, like,
Oh,
you know, that's not,
well, I think that's a good reason to put
It's not
police
realistic.
and DPWs on,
you know, I mean, that's at least probably an hour, I would think.
Yeah.
yeah, because there may be other things we can do in between in case they run less time. Other, like, minutes, something we could save for, dead time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we have a pretty good experience of which ones we really delve into. I mean, you sort of got the primary suspects.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the timing, so someone else doesn't have to sit a half an hour.
I
They
didn't.
have
I know, that's
their-
wit's hard, I always feel bad for the people waiting, they don't get to up here until 9:30 and they were supposed to be here at 8:15,
Yeah.
you know, it's
So what,
it's hard.
what are the little people first? Little
Yeah, and get them out, I
Well,
agree,
for-
maybe.
Yeah, well, we could do like for fire and police and DPW, we could spend the first half hour with maybe one or two
Animal
smaller,
control
pretty
officer.
smaller.
I kinda like strike that deal with, do Animal and those guys in the first half hour. They only
Yeah.
need 10 minutes, so you
Right.
can do 3, and then however long it takes after that, we spend as much time as we want.
Yeah.
There's no limit.
I think
Yeah, I
that
agree.
makes sense.
Yeah, nobody wants to hang around and
No,
it's just painful for everybody.
yeah,
Because Joe and Bumper,
yeah,
and maybe Kelly will have a lot of stuff.
they usually do, usually always
So,
go
the
over.
library comes in with a pretty
Right.
straightforward
Library was
package.
pretty
There's not a lot to it.
Quick last year.
It's the questions we ask. I think they
Even, well,
do
even
very
then, I
well.
mean, last year they came in and it was very straightforward, so
Right.
there wasn't a lot of, whereas we were struggling to figure out some of the other departments.
I think we hashed out all our library issues a few years ago,
Library.
maybe.
All right.
I think it's safeguards.
Yeah, because you're gonna talk about capital for a long time. I guess.
My observation would be, last year, I think started on capital projects too late in the process.
I agree.
Mhm.
I actually think it was both. We started too early because actually our very first meetings were about capital, but it was almost like it was so early that they
Everybody had
didn't
to
have
keep
enough.
coming back.
They didn't have
Right.
enough information, and and then it ended up going too late.
And then
it
so
may
there's
be
a
different
redundancy
with
with the
Dawn,
capital planning committee, because there's.
But in
Reading
theory,
around.
so everybody had to put in their capital stuff right around Thanksgiving, right? So it's been 6 weeks. If you haven't gotten your stuff by now, then you're not doing a good job. Like, your capital, you know the deadlines and you should be doing it,
Do more.
right? And then it's like, you can't be changing the numbers through March, like last year. People can't, it's like, oh, I gotta wait for what, and it's like, no, if you have a capital request, you need to have backup. I just think you gotta be firm.
All right, so is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's 8:39. Thank you, Bob.
It's like, when we wait super long on capital, it changes the whole budget, you know?
Does that go off?
It looks like it's still on, but